Good morning, everyone. It's Danielle with Northlawn Flower Farms. Well, it looks like the frost is on the horizon in 4 days from now, and in about 2 hours it's going to rain nonstop before that freeze. So I thought I better really get on out here and capture the garden for one last time before she goes to bed. So let's take a nice slow walk through the garden this morning. There is some nice fall foliage to see and color. A lot of things, of course, as always in my garden, have been cut for the season to sell. But I think still some nice things to see. So if this is your first time visiting my channel, I garden here in 6B in the United States in south central Pennsylvania. My whole half acre functions as a cutting garden. I used to grow in the long rows that you see other flower farmers grow in, but over the years I've switched to growing most of my cut flowers in the borders. But for now, at this point in the season, I'm only selling on the weekends, so it's really about the foliage. So let's start here with this beautiful 9 bark. Don't you love that color? It really says Halloween to me more than anything else. That's the tiny wine 9 bark. And I just don't think you can beat that color, you know? Where else can you get that dark foliage all season long? Underneath it is Bergarten sage, which kind of transitions into our feverfew. And then we have a serviceberry tree right here, which might be a little hard to see just with the lighting today, but its leaves are starting to turn a beautiful orange color. Now if we look this way, same thing on this side of the entrance is that Bergarten sage. All this Bergarten sage was propagated by softwood cuttings. I just started out with a few plants. And then we have the Velveteen Coleus, which has done really great all season. And then in a video, I believe, maybe in June, I planted this Tithonia, and let's see if I can back up far enough for you to be able to see how tall it is. It surpassed the roof there and gotten a little bit wild. I'm not sure if I'll put it there again, but you can see Tithonia really booms, and I did end up staking it. So I guess we can travel down this way first. Here we have a Arctic Fire yellow dogwood. And you can see those beautiful yellow sticks starting to come on. There I have some envy zinnias. I try to do different successions, so I always have some blooming. Back behind it is a Limelight Hydrangea with some more Tithonia. Then in front of the wishing well, I have that nice catmint, such a reliable perennial. And in front of it, I just put some mums for the season. Now, I think I forgot to do a tour in September, but I'll put some footage on the screen of when my obedient plant was blooming before I cut most of it, so you can see, because now it's kind of flopped over in a storm what remains. But it's really beautiful when it's blooming. Right there we have a Limelight Hydrangea, the little pumpkin hedge underneath it. Here's a look down what I like to call the main flower walk. So we can just start walking together. I put in some Lantana right here just for the fun of it. This is only 5 plants. They've really boomed. I probably didn't need to put 5. Probably 4 or even 3 would have sufficed. A lot of perennials that have gone over by now, like the Joe Pye weed. This grass here, I noticed some questions, is called Miscanthus cabaret. That grass there with the green and white striping. And you'll see it some other places too where I've divided it. Oh, Rocky would like to say hi to everyone. I guess we'll just keep going down the border this way and then we'll come back. Here's a wonderful shrub or tree, depending on what zone you're in, called Vitex. A really cool leaf structure and really lovely blooms. Almost reminiscent of a butterfly bush, I would say. And down underneath it, for some winter interest, I have the blue star juniper. And we have St. Francis there. Maybe he's praying over the Lantana, and that's why it got so big for me this year. Of course, in my garden, most things are used for cuts, and so you'll see a lot of holes because at this point in the season, most things have been harvested. Here's my little River of Autumn Joy sedum. Here is the Firelight Tidbit. This is new from Proven Winners. I think you can order it on their website now and you'll see it in garden centers next year. But it's a small, tiny version of the Firelight, and I'm really happy with it. Here we come upon Rocky and our first fall vignette. I did have a stack of pumpkins there, but I took a couple to make some projects with. Some coreopsis down there. A lot of perennials been cut back for the season at this point. Here we have a boxwood, which I just kind of let grow all woolly because I cut from it. And then back here is the ginger wine 9-bark. Let me see if I can get in a bit closer for you so you can see that nice color. Isn't that lovely? And do you want to see something really funny? So maybe 4 years ago back here, I planted cucamelons. And guess what still pops up here every year? Cucamelons. They're just everywhere, actually. I need to come out here and pick them. But I only planted them that 1 year. And now they just always appear back here no matter what. There's a nice gold juniper back here with some of our perennial aster, a butterfly bush, and along this wattle fence that I built, I am growing forsythia that I propagated. So that'll be really nice. In March, you'll see this beautiful yellow all along here. So we're kind of inside the border now. So let's try to walk out without falling over. Here's another one of those Miscanthus cabaret, if you like the look of that. Really easy to grow. I only bought one of them, and I divided it into, I think, 3 of them at this point. They get really, really big, especially if you don't divide them. There's another limelight where most of the blooms have been cut off. We can take a look down. What we'll see further is that beautiful Mexican bush sage, which I'm always thankful for this time of year when, not too much more is blooming, but you still have that beautiful color. This is the last week in October here in Zone 6B. And all the mums that you'll see in the border are from previous years. This is that Sedona Sunset Coleus that I planted in a video. And I love it. I'm really definitely going to plant it again next year. Maybe I'll try it somewhere different, just so that there's more of a contrast when the burning bush turns color. So now you see my burning bush, it's turning red. Then I have the Sedona Sunset red. I don't know, maybe Limetime Coleus would have been a better choice for there. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. Some dahlias here. Just some red dahlias. As I say, really coming to the end of the season now. This is a Pinky Winky hydrangea, which I still need to decide where I want to put her as for her final resting spot. I'm not sure. She can't live there much longer. And I have my Annabelle there. Once again, most of her heads are inside drying. And back in there, I apologize, you probably can't see it too well, is a Abelia, which for me is a semi-evergreen shrub, which is a really wonderful shrub. And some hostas and things like that. There's a gardening group I'm in, and I saw someone post a picture this morning showing this flower and asking what it was. So I thought maybe it'd be helpful if you see mine. It's mallow. So if you have a flower like that pop up, you're looking at a mallow. There's my big mama hosta, and she's weathered 2 storms, 2 huge hailstorms, and been cut back. So we'll see her in her full glory next year. Some lady's mantle down in there. I just recently moved this King's Gold fall cypress here, and I still don't think I like it. I don't know, maybe I just don't like the plant. I can't decide. It was so funny because other people commented that they have the King's Gold fall cypress and they keep moving it. Maybe it's just one of those things that it's hard to make it work in the landscape. I'm not really sure. Here's some Limetime Coleus looking great. This Limetime Coleus gets more shade and is more sheltered than my other Limetime, and it's fared a lot better than the one you'll see later on in the driveway garden. And this is just kind of an area with a whole bunch of hydrangeas. Solomon seal there. And we're moving into a part of the garden that's really going to get heavily made over next year. Here's a shrub I just purchased recently, and I think the foliage is really lovely. It's a blue shadow button bush. So it has this kind of icy blue foliage in the summer, and then in the autumn you get that beautiful yellowing. I don't know if can you see that? Anyway, quite lovely. So I'm excited to have that color in the border now. So here's a plant I won't grow again. This is Kilimanjaro Marigold. And I really wanted a white marigold for weddings. And this is not white. Anyway, you live and learn, right? And we've got some mums here in the rock chair. Anyway, this garden always gets a little away from me after I've cut the gladiolas back here, and so I'm going to focus a lot more attention on this garden next year. But for now, I'm just going to let it go to bed for the season. And you can see the Wildflower Meadow there in the background. I'll take a pan of the back of the property here. More burning bush. Some forsythia there. As soon as we moved in, I tried to work really hard on getting a windbreak around our entire property because it was very exposed. And one thing about having a cutting garden is it's a really good idea to have a windbreak all around it if you can. So I'm almost there as far as being completely enclosed here. So we'll pop back over to these beds at the end of the tour so you can see my cool flowers. But I don't know if everyone will be interested in that, so I'll show that at the very end. But let me just show you back here. So I put in some white light sunflowers, seeing how far I could push the season. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get any usable stems out of those. But, you know, it was worth a try, and you always learn when you try things. And we have our black raspberries here, and I want to show you the color on this tree called a pawpaw. That tree does get a fruit, but I do love the fall color. And I love the structure here of this old white lilac that we have. But as you get further and further back into the property, it just gets more farmy, I guess. I don't know, you know, compost and things like that. All right, let's travel down the other side of the border, and I'll show you the other more formal-ish gardens. All right, so now Back on the main flower walk, you can see here the feverfew. Still have some straw flowers sticking around, although I've pulled most of them at this point. But they're just so fun to grow. So wonderful for crafting. Where I have that little teepee there is marking where I have some Festiva Maxima peonies that have been cut back. Someone just asked me when is the right time to move peonies, and it's a good idea to move them in the fall if you can. Oh, you know what? Something that might be interesting is, so if you watched my May tour when you saw my Festiva Maxima, I have 3 very large clumps, one there, and one on the other side. They were here when we moved here, but they were way, way back there, buried in the shade by the last burning bush. And they were not blooming, and they were a really small clump. And I divided them and moved them, and 2 years later, they're just absolutely fabulous. So don't be afraid to move things. At least that's what I learned from that experience. So I'm really very thankful for this shrub. I think it's just a wonderful texture and color to have in the garden. It's a Winecraft Gold smoke bush. It only grows to 4 by 4 feet tall and wide, which is nice because, you know, I remember my grandma, she had one of the older, darker smoke bushes, and it was ginormous, and it kind of got gnarly looking too over the years, but this one stays nice and compact, and I just love that chartreuse color foliage, and it's so nice that you can have it in a shrub, you know, and not have to bother with buying an annual every year. Now here's my gomphrena. Some mums from previous years that have made their way over here into the border. Some Lantana that's kind of grown through the Limelight Hydrangea here. And then we come to another beautiful Mexican bush sage. This is definitely my favorite fall blooming plant. I have more spring type perennials back in there, like Bleeding Heart, Siberian Iris, other things like that, Bearded Iris. Down here I have some of our native coneflower. I got some lambs here and there from my grandma's garden. And then I have some nasturtiums that I did from seed. These nasturtiums, are called Peach Melba. None of them are peach. They're all very brightly colored. So if you know of a truly light peach nasturtium, I would love it if you wouldn't mind leaving me a comment about what variety it is. Here we have a Japanese cedar. A lovely evergreen to have. And I just recently moved that Crepe Myrtle over here. So now we can go back, see behind the garage, kind of in my hydrangea garden. Some more of those nasturtiums here. All different kinds of hydrangeas back here. Invincible Spirit 2, which has those beautiful pink heads in the early summer. Down here is all my teddy bear sunflowers. I'll put a picture on the screen of what the teddy bears look like in bloom so you can see them. I feel really bad I didn't get around to filming a September tour, but I just get so busy with the stand sometimes. So back here is just a lot of different shrubs mainly. So this one is a Boomerang Lilac. I think that one is the purple. You know, some heucheras, some dahlias over here. I don't know the variety of this dahlia because I got this from the Penn State Flower Trials. It's really nice. So they give the master gardeners a flat or two of flowers at the beginning of the season, but none of them are marked. So that was I got some of these dahlias, but they weren't marked. I don't know what they are. I think I showed you the Neo Rose Celosia the other day when I was talking about dried flowers, so let me show you one fresh so you can see what it looks like. It is pretty, isn't it? But I think I'm going to pass on it for next year, and I have it tucked in back there too. That's a vanilla strawberry hydrangea. Of course, pretty much brown now, this time of the year. And here I have I think it was blue steel angelonia. And I enjoyed that. I did feel that as a cut flower, you definitely need to put it in quick dip to get the top of it not to flop over. So, I don't know. I have to really love something a lot if I need to put it in quick dip every single stem. So, as a landscape flower, I like it. As a cut flower, I think I would pass on it. Now you see this hole right here? Let me know if anyone else has experience with this. So what I had here was 5 plants of clustered bellflower. The only one that's left is this one. And I've planted clustered bellflower before and the same thing happened. So I don't know why. I don't know if it's something here with the garage, draining here, but I have it set to drain out in a way. So I don't know, if you grow clustered bellflower, just tell me anything and everything about how you've had success with it, because I really love it and I want to grow it, and every time I do, it just kind of disappears and I'm not sure why. So here's that beautiful crepe myrtle that I showed you the other day. A beautiful fall color. I find crepe myrtle lasts really well in arrangements. Some salvia back here. Once again, I got this salvia from the Penn State Flower Trials, so not 100% sure on the variety. And then back there, some of my cotton plants. I don't know if you can see that. Just a couple cotton plants. So if we look over here, this is a garden that I just started to try to create maybe about a month ago. Just using plants that I already had, just so it's kind of a nice woodland garden. We had to cut a lot of trees down when we first moved here. So we have a pile in the back for burning, but I wanted to kind of line this entire area. So, keep it going, like swoop around here so that it lines our whole orchard. Because let me tell you what happened. First of all, it's just basically hostas that have been cut back, lamium, ferns, any kind of shade stuff that I just have around, I've been dividing and putting in here. And then as time progresses, I'll continue this on. So here we are at the driveway garden, and this garden always gets pretty wild looking. I consider it to be a complete cutting garden. Everything in here is a good cut and is planted basically for the purpose of cutting. So down here I have some guacamole heucheras. A beautiful old blue hydrangea, which was here when we moved in. This year I grew a lot of this Flamingo feather Celosia, which has proved to be just such a winner in so many ways. Produces just so many stems and dries true to form and color. So I'll definitely be growing that again. Bordering the whole bottom of the driveway garden is Lirope. Once again, really, really easy to just propagate yourself. I think I started with literally just one of those. And you can just divide it every single year. So this is also my dahlia area. And I'm sorry, but you're actually not going to see that many dahlias because they've been cut and sold. So maybe I'll try to put some pictures on the screen of the dahlias that are in this area. but I could share with you my favorites is definitely Peter's Glory, and I'll share a picture of that on the screen, and Star's Favorite. Star's Favorite is over here, but there's still one here. This Limetime Coleus did not fare as well when the temperatures dipped down to about 34 a few weeks ago. So here I have the Ridiculous Coleus, and it too also got hit pretty hard when it turned 34. It really was not happy with that and suffered. So now as we travel down, I hope you can see it in the camera, I have a whole bunch of Tithonia here lining the back of the garden. That grass there is called Blackest Night. It's a great grass, isn't it? But you can see all that Tithonia there. And this is the garden that I'm going to be working on a lot more next year. But I can show you some things that I'm still able to cut from in here. Is this Dianthus. I think this Dianthus, I think it was just called Pink Rose. I'll correct myself on the screen if that's not correct. But that's pretty much all we have left in here for cutting. But I do want to show you, oh, you can see some more Mexican bush sage too. And hairy. I do want to show you the Limelight Prime's fall color. And I posted a picture on Instagram when it was really in its prime, but the difference in the fall color from the Limelight Prime to the old school Limelight is a huge difference. I mean, look at the color on that. I mean, it's red, really. Hot pink, red. So look at that color. And then if you can look over across the way to that one, that's like an old school Limelight. So at this point, man, I'm definitely going to invest in some more of these Limelight Primes and find homes for them. Because that's amazing color, isn't it? And I've got some lavender bordering this area. So let's head back now to the boxes, because I know there's some people who wanted to see my Cool Flowers hardy annuals. So if you're interested in that, we can go check those out. Okay, so we can talk hardy annuals a bit. I know I talk about this book a lot, but it's because it's really helped me over the years. And it's the book Cool Flowers by Lisa Mason Ziegler. And it talks all about planting hardy annuals in the fall, the late winter, or very early spring, depending on your zone. So some things I plant in the fall. And everything I plant in the fall here in 6B, I direct seed. Some of it's not even up yet. But here I have Honesty. There I have some foxglove. That was already there. I'll show you in this half of this bed is Love in a Mist, which I direct seeded. And for me, the key with direct seeding success is to significantly overseed. Seed is not expensive. And so I do overseed so I can have success. So you can see these are Love in a Mist that I'd put in not too long ago. Maybe 2 weeks ago I sowed that seed, so you can see that's all Love in a Mist. And I do not thin these until the spring. But they will overwinter as little baby plants, and then they'll give me much stronger, taller, usable stems earlier by planting them in this manner. Now I can show you some my Bells of Ireland babies here. They're just starting to appear. Can you see them here? There I have Bells of Ireland. Once again, direct seeded. So that's this area. And then over here, behind the zinnias. Guys, it's so cold out. I have a hat on, I needed to put gloves on. Is Dara. So this area back here is Dara again. So I did not plant this Dara this year. This reseeded itself So I'll try to put some footage on the screen or a picture of when this Dahlia was blooming. So it bloomed, I cut everything I needed, I let it go to seed, it dropped its own seed for me, and now here are those baby plants that it created. And so, you know, they're not spaced properly right now, but the way I do it is I leave it like this over the winter, and then come very early spring, I'll go ahead and put them into rows accordingly. I just don't really want to mess with them now. I want to let them get as much root growth as possible before it gets really cold. So that's pretty much it for the hardy annuals. The larkspur was over in the driveway garden, and it always just reseeds itself. All right, everyone. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the tour. Probably the last full tour of the season before a lot of these things need to be pulled out, and I'll start planting my bulbs and everything like that. I want to thank you so much for all the kindness that you've showed to me this season, as I've just really started to share my garden with everyone just this year. It's just so nice to be involved in a gardening community with such kind people, especially this year more than ever when, you know, sometimes it can feel quite lonely. It's nice to have that community of gardeners, even if it is online, that you can chat with about plants and flowers and just things that bring us joy. So I just want to thank you again. And until next time, happy gardening. Bye.